Bumpy gets a blast from the past, which can determine the future. Frank is hustling, but he's hustling the wrong way. Margaret is getting beat at school, and you already know we are not having that at all. We got a familiar name with a new face. Your girl Stella is trying to gain power over this guy, and it seems even more difficult than the father. James Baldwin shows up, and he blasts Bumpy, but he apologizes and helps Bumpy see the future. And yes, Elise finds her new movement. This is the episode 3, season 4 recap for Godfather of Harlem. A lot to get into, fam, so let's just break it down. We start off the episode with the great writer James Baldwin, and this is a book signing, and he is speaking to a group of individuals, looks like a mixture of individuals, and he's asking people, he says, yes, I am a great writer, but how do you see me as a black man? And he talks about Harlem and the ghettos and everything, and he talks about the systems and all the systematic racism, and he's really getting into it, and he's asking them, do they see him as a third-class citizen? And of course, we see Bumpy and we see Mamie there as well, and this is part of the whole book thing that Mamie set up with the lady, right? And James Baldwin is the guy that everybody wants to see and talk about, but he's really getting into it and saying only the drug dealers are trolling and owning property. And then here comes Nat, and he's like, hey, we need to go. And he calls out Bumpy, says, look, a drug dealer. And Bumpy's like, well, look at you. Who are you to look down on me? When they're going back and forth, and really it's not a good look that the James Baldwin calls out Bumpy Johnson when Bumpy is trying to go on a straight and narrow path. But of course, James Baldwin is just calling him out. But Bumpy definitely has something good to say back, and Mamie's not feeling too good about it because, again, they weren't really feeling her being a part of it because of Bumpy. But James Baldwin is, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And Mamie's looking at the lady that set it all up, and she's looking like, oh, well, this is what we were afraid of. So hopefully it doesn't turn out bad for Mamie. So now as we move on, we see, of course, the accountant is calling on Bumpy. Why'd you take me out of this meeting? He said, listen, that property that you wanted to build apartments on, look, it's already been bought up by somebody. And he's like, who is this somebody? And it's like, oh, this is a black person? Must be, but you know what? All skin folk ain't kin folk. And he's like, I don't want to go talk to him. He's like, look, it's best for you not to ruffle him up. Try a different approach because this is on a corporate level, not a street level. So hopefully Bumpy takes the advice, but yes, there's a blockage coming and he has to get over this hump. Meanwhile, we are looking at the doogie that Frank Lucas stole, right? And he is frustrated. Why? Because he has to find another way to move this because it's a lot of doogie and he doesn't have a distribution system. Monique is asking, what's going on, Daddy? And he's like, I got to find another way to do this. And she's like, well, why don't you just give it back? He said, listen, if I give it back, they're going to have a bullet in my head before they can say thank you. So he's just trying to figure it out. He has all of this weight, all of this doogie, and he's the only one pushing it. So he needs more workers. He needs a distribution. And he's like, I got to see what's going on with these Italians. And she's like, man, the Italians is always hating on us, right? So Frank is trying to find a way. He's thinking of another way to do this. And once she said that, he said, hey, you know what? I just got to find an Italian that doesn't hate on us that I can work with, right? So Frank is going to do what he has to do to find out who your boy Bumpy Johnson was running with or messing with or connecting with. And maybe he can hook up with them, being that Bumpy Johnson is not in the doogie business anymore. But the problem is that the doogie that was taken, Frank Lucas replaced it with milk sugar. So now, of course, you got this guy, Pino, who's supposed to be the new guy, acting leader in charge, along with Stella. They're complaining because a quarter of the doogie was replaced with milk sugar. And they're blaming Bumpy for the whole thing because Bumpy's the one that returned it. Of course, your boy Dallas, man, Bumpy's a man of integrity. We don't deal in that anymore. And he's like, look, let me talk to Bumpy, see what's going on, and find out what's happening. He's like, well, I want answers now. And Stella's like, yo, listen, calm down. I'm saying we need to maintain a relationship with Bumpy. And he's like, listen, your father put me in charge to talk to the Negroes. I know how to do it. So she's getting a little friction. Meanwhile, we are watching TV, and who do we see on the television? We are looking at the Black Panthers. They're being covered by the news. And we see what's going on here. Margaret's being asked if she did her homework. She says she will. So they're watching the Black Panthers, and the Black Panthers are explaining this is the Black Panther for self-defense, right? Because they're tired of the police harassing them and everything else like that. Back in the 60s, that's what was going on. And they're out there just covering this, and we're seeing for the first time the Black Panthers be introduced. And Margaret is watching, Elise is watching, and of course Mamie's watching, right? So they're looking at this, and it looks very interesting. First time seeing this. They're out in California, very heavy, and they're absolutely protecting the Black community, right? And Margaret is looking, and Elise is very interested. And Mamie says they just look like a whole bunch of criminals. And Margaret, they look fine to me. And she's like, Mamie's like, excuse me, young lady. And Elise is like, well, they do look fine, right? They do look, meaning that they look good. They don't look like criminals. So they're watching the television and getting all this information on how they are protecting the communities from the police and from police brutality. And while Mamie is watching this, she's getting sick of it at the same time. So she goes up and she turns off the TV. Says, Margaret, go do your homework. Margaret's like, I'm not a little girl anymore. But Mamie's like, hey, you're not a little girl anymore, but you're still my little girl, right? Go do your homework, right? So now we get into it and we see how this whole dynamic between how Elise and Mamie's raising Margaret. But she's like, it's not good for a young lady to watch TV and all this and that. And Elise is like, well, what are you teaching her? How to turn off the TV when a Black man's trying to make a difference in the community? So we've seen a tiny bit of friction there, but it's not really friction. But of course, we know the ideals of Elise are a little bit different than Mamie. So here we are with your boy, Bumpy Johnson. And Bumpy again goes to this address of the guy supposedly that bought up the property that Bumpy was going to use for new apartments. He's like, no way that he lives in this dump, right? This is the guy that bought up your property. So they go in there and they knock on the door. He doesn't answer. Your boy Nat, he kicks in the door and this guy is there and it's an old guy. He's like, don't shoot. I knew your sister. And he's like, what? You knew my sister? He's like, I actually was going to marry your sister back in the day. I knew you when you was just a little kid. And he's like, Marshall Grant, Mr. G? Oh, Mr. G. So this guy knows Bumpy from Bumpy's sister. And he's like, oh, Mr. G, I'm sorry, get up, please. I'm here to talk with you, please. Let's talk this way, right? So he gets him up off the floor. They broke in the door, so they got to fix that door some way, right? So he's sitting down with Marshall Grant. He says, hey, man, and they start reminiscing. He's like, you were really sweet on my sister. I moved up here. And he's like, I know you moved up here and you was a little rough and she was trying to raise you, but you was just a real knucklehead. You was a hard head and you was rough around the edges. He's like, I'm not that boy anymore. I'm actually here to talk to you about doing some things different. And he seems very angry at her, right? He says, you know what? When you went to jail, it messed up your sister and she drank herself to death. She died. And she blamed herself that she felt like she didn't raise you right. But you know what? I don't blame her. I blame you and all your roughneck stuff that messed her up and made her die and stress out, right? So he's really upset with Bumpy and how he used to be. So he really has a grudge against Bumpy Johnson because he didn't go the right way and his sister then tried to help him. But he's like, well, I'm not that guy anymore. He tells Nat to give him some money for the door. So he gives him some money for the door. He's like, whatever. So this is going to be kind of hard for Bumpy to get over because this guy already has a grudge towards him. He's known him since he was a little kid. So this is not going to be an easy road to find out what's going on with this property. So James Baldwin sits down with Mamie Johnson and it's all about capitalism, right? They're talking about everybody's working hard just to get the money. It's all about capitalism. And she's like, well, my husband's a businessman and he's not just to get money, right? He's like, well, I'm writing about this and that in the community and I'm fighting the oppressor in my own way. And Mamie's trying to explain he's doing the same thing in his own way as well. And the thing about it is James Baldwin is trying to understand how Bumpy is really moving and why he's moving this way. He's going in a different direction. And she's explaining that to him. And she's like, what is your problem with him making money? She's like, well, that's what everybody's doing, right? So the end of the conversation, it just comes down to, well, I'm right to fight against oppression in my books. Bumpy's doing what he's doing. But is that truly enough to really fight this system that is against us? And that's the question. What James Baldwin is doing and what Bumpy's doing, is it really enough to get over what's being done in the community. So it's a great conversation, but this conversation will lead to another conversation with James Baldwin and Bumpy. So here we are with your boy Nat, and he's grabbing Marshall Grant's mail. It's like, oh, you got the wrong address, right? So he grabs his mail because we want to get down to the bottom of who really bought up this property from Bumpy. And we see Straub and Partners. That's who bought up this property. So now we're at the parlor and we see that your girl Stella is bringing some biscotti to the lady. And she's like, what's going on with you? What's wrong with you? She's like, my father put this guy in charge and I'm the smartest. And she's like, what about Paris? I thought you was going to go away for Paris. She's like, that was freedom, but I was trying to work with my father to get my freedom here. She's like, it's not really working out. And she gives her the best advice and says, hey, listen, if you want power, I really don't know anything about the Italian mob and everything else like that, but if you want power, you're going to have to take it. Just like I want this recipe to this biscotti, and if anything, I'm going to go in your kitchen and get the recipe, right? So you got to take your power. So she gives us some good advice, and she walks out the door, and this figure walks in with an afro, and she looks at her, who is that? So she's walking in, she's looking around, and then we see Elise is there. She walks up on Elise, and she's like, Elise Johnson? She's like, yes. And she introduces herself, and who is this? This is Afeni Shakur, right? She is the mother of Tupac. Crazy, right? This is awesome. So Bumpy's looking at the paperwork. He's looking at the mail. He's like, these are the guys right here. They're using Marshall Grant to get access to all these government funds, right? Because they need a black person in order to get these funds specifically specified for black projects. So they're using Marshall Grant as a straw man. That's the name of this episode, Straw Man, right? So they're using him as the face, but really it's a white-owned company. So Afeni Shakur is talking to Elise, and Elise is like, hey, Malcolm never stifled me, but she says Malcolm never gave you the mic. He's like, well, your movement and your efforts didn't die with Malcolm. With the Black Panthers, they don't stifle us. We speak up and speak out for the rights of the people. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, but women are able to speak up for themselves. And she is saying, hey, basically, you have an open spot here with the Black Panthers. And it looks like Elise will do it. Now on Broadway and Wall Street, we see your boy Bumpy Johnson go down to Mr. Straub and Partner establishment. And he's like, yeah, I'm Straub. Yes. How you doing, Mr. Johnson? He's like, you want something to drink? He's like, nope. He wanted to see what was going on here because like someone bought up my property that I had a contract on. He's like, well, you plan on doing some great things and everything else like that. So Bumpy doesn't waste time. He's like, look, looks like what you're doing is you're using Marshall Grant as a straw man to get funds from the government and from, the city, and you're using him to buy up the property and do whatever you want with it. He's like, well, you kind of what it is. We're going to do what we have to do. He's like, look, you're going to stop that. We're going to stop all of that. He's like, man, I could tie you up in court with all of my lawyers. It doesn't really matter unless you want to talk about investments. And he's, Bumpy's like, hey, with all due respect, go F yourself. So Bumpy tells him to go F himself, walks out. You already know Bumpy has a plan, and he's going to put some things in motion, but he has to get some keys first. All right, so here we are. These guys are still looking for the person that may have their doogie, but they're really leaning towards Bumpy Johnson. And, Stella's like, listen, it's not Bumpy. Go back to the spots. Go back to the drug spots. Look for the dealers. And if it looks like somebody that's not down with us, then you bring him in. So the guy looks at Pino, and he's like, what the F are you looking at? Listen to what she says. Go ahead and do it. Get it done, right? So Pino knows what's going on. He's looking at her like, yeah, it was a good idea. He won't say it, but it is what it is. So now we're in school with Margaret, and they're talking about Christopher Columbus and discovery of America and everything else like that, right? In the books, it's saying something else. So Margaret asks a question. She raises her hand. She's like, yeah, wasn't Christopher Columbus a murderer as well? She's like, no, he was not. So in the book it says, and then she's like, you know what? You're right. He wasn't a murderer. And then she goes on and says, well, he actually was looking to oppress the Indians. And in the book, it says he wanted to make them slaves. And he's like, stop that. Stop your talking. You're disrupting the class and all of this and that. He's like, but this is what it says in the book. And it says that he wanted to enslave them and everything else like that. He's like, you're going to stop talking right now. And he's getting all aggressive and everything else like that. And he takes his stick and he whacks it on the desk and scares Margaret. What is going on here? This teacher is crazy. So we got your boy Frank. He's serving the fiends, whatever. And who walks up? Del and Nat walks up. Well, Mr. Milk Sugar, he said, look, when you want to cross Bumpy like this and put some milk sugar, that's not a good thing. Bumpy wants to see right now. He's like, really? He said, look, man, you let me go. I got like kilos. Listen, we can split it between all of us. He's like, what are you, crazy, man? Like, Bumpy doesn't sell Doogie, nor do we. He's like, look, I don't want to go. We ain't asking you, bro. Either you going to come walking or you going to come flat on your back. What's your call? So, of course, Frank smiles and he's like, okay, go. He don't want no more trouble. He already got beat up by Adele and Nat, so he don't want no more problems. So, here we are with Joe Colombo. He's meeting with somebody. Who is he meeting with? Stroud. Boy, this guy goes to Colombo. He's trying to get Bumpy out of the way. He's like, look, man, we got to knock him off. We got to get rid of Bumpy. He's like, yo, that's complicated. He's like, well, Colombo's like, hey, listen, I'll meet with Marshall Grant and just make sure he understands the severity of him not reneging on the deal that we already got in place, right? He's like, okay, fine. You talk to him and says, you know what? Go ahead and knock him off too. Knock off Marshall Grant. He's lived a long life. Once we get the deal through, you can get rid of him too. So Colombo's like, I don't know about all that, but whatever. So he cheers to that as well. He even knew this was crazy what he was asking to do. Because he's Italian, he's calling him a mobster or whatever. So he wasn't really feeling that. So Mamie gets a call from the school, right? Here comes Margaret. She walks in. Mamie's like, we need to talk. You're being disruptive in class. What's this about? And she's like, she's been saying some wrong stuff. I was just trying to read from the book. I raised my hand and she's like, you already know this is not how we act. And she was just getting on Margaret without even listening to her story, which is not cool. You're not cool that you don't understand. And she's just like shocked and what Margaret is saying. And she's like, you're not even listening to me. Like, God needs to be fired. And she just walks into her room, right? She walks to her room and Mamie looks very shocked. So Elise comes in. She's like, what's going on here? What's happening? She's like, your daughter. Like, he's getting pissed off because he doesn't really know how to handle this. So Elise goes in there and says, Margaret, what's going on? Let me know. It's okay. You can tell me what's happened. And she's like, you really want to know what happened? She takes off her shirt and shows her shoulder is bruised. No. And Margaret is shocked. I'm shocked. We're all shocked. She's like, this is what's going on. And a lot of kids are being beat at school. And Elise doesn't know what to say, right? I'm all shocked at this point. She just hugs her and tries to comfort her because who knows how long this has been going on, that these kids have been beaten because they may have been raising their hand and not really being disruptive, but just kind of asking questions. So here we are with Frank Lucas. He's talking to Bumpy. He's like, look, man, you're hearing that there's some things going on and you out there selling stuff. And he's like, look, man, he put you on a mission to really test you. He's like, nah, Frank is smart. See, Frank is smart. Frank is like, nah, you ain't test me. You knew that I was expendable and you thought that I might have got popped out of this. Frank is talking a whole lot of mess. He asked him what he's up here to do. He's like, I'm up here to make money just like you. But they are at odds at this point. And your boy Bumpy is not trying to hear no lip from Frank Lucas. He's like, get up out of here. Yeah, Frank Lucas got his number. Yeah, he was trying to use, Frank, period. So now the ladies go to the school and they're talking to the principal. This teacher needs to be fired. You're beating on the kids, not just my kid. And maybe he's trying to be real civil, real, polite and everything. And he's like, look, I'm not trying to talk about this right now. I'll talk to the teacher. And Elise is like, no, he needs to be fired right now for abusing my daughter, period. He's like, look, y'all need to get off the property before I have to call 911, before I have to call the cops. Of course, they do that. He's like, all right, let's leave. Let's go, because they're not going to believe Mamie nor Elise when this guy calls, right? But of course, he's going to have to deal with this one way or another. We will be back. So we're seeing a picture of Marshall Grant with Bumpy's sister, right? So now Bumpy's back to talk to him. And he's like, hey, look, I just wanted to talk to you. I'm trying to make things better. Guys, they're using you. And he's like, nah, they're not using me. They're paying my rent. Here's the deal. They pay my rent and da-da-da-da-da. He's like, well, they're using you and using your name to buy up this property. And he's like, look, man, he's trying to convince Marshall that these guys are really utilizing him. But Marshall is not liking Bumpy, and he's talking a lot of crap to Bumpy. He's like, look, Nat is not having it. He's talking so much junk to Bumpy, man. You know who he is. He tries to pay him off, and he's just like, man, I don't know what to do. Like, Bumpy's up in arms. Mr. Marshall, he's not feeling Bumpy at all. And it's just, we're bumping heads here, and Bumpy really doesn't know how to really handle this guy. So one of the goons, Stella, Pino's goons, goes in there to the drug spot. He sees this drug. He's like, where's your pusher, right? So the guy just sitting there, and he's looking around with his little pistol or whatever. And then all of a sudden, Frank comes from behind. Boom! Grabs him, knocks him down. The gun falls out of his hand. He's trying to reach for the gun, right? Your boy Frank Lucas is beating him down, holding him back, pulling him back from getting at the gun, right? Frank ain't playing, boy. He's pulling, he's reaching out. He doesn't have a strap. He's trying to get the gun, and your boy Frank takes the knife and slits him, right? Guts him like a pig, right? Man, Frank is not playing, boy. He is heartless, ruthless. He's doing what he has to do to survive, man. So, of course, he pulls all whatever's on him, money or whatever, and he says, oh, nice ring. So he takes this ring. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you want to take that ring and wear it, Frank, but Frank does what he does, and he leaves the guy right there and walks out. Now, here we go. Shoe Shine Man is talking to Bumpy, and he's like, hey, this is what I do. I add a little this and add a little that to make it shine. So James Baldwin walks up on Bumpy and says, hey, Bumpy, I need to talk to you. I need to apologize to you. So you're like, hey, have a seat, right? And he wanted to apologize for basically calling him out at that meeting. He didn't mean to do that. And you're just really thinking about it. You're kind of like to do the same thing. And James Baldwin is just talking about, he's trying to do his part, and Bumpy's trying to do his part now. He's trying to do things different now. And it's just a meeting of the minds. It's a classic moment right here where two people who really want to do something for the community and for Black race are really coming together in their own way to try to figure out how they can help each other and how they can help with the vision. Now, this conversation is leading Bumpy to realize that he needs to make people part of the foundation to change things. And this great meeting with James Baldwin has changed Bumpy's mind to lead him in another direction. So what happens is he tells Dell and Nat to go and get Mr. Grant, Mr. G. Go pick him up and bring him back to base so they can talk to him, right? They want to talk to him. So, of course, he's like, hey, man, I can't be intimidated. I want to talk to you about this thing. And he's like, listen, there's nothing I can do. I'm not trying to intimidate you. I'm going to have to show you what's really going on so you can see it for yourself. I'm going to bring you down to Straub and Partners and show you the property that you are supposed to own and let you see what they're going to do with it, right? So that's a great idea from Bumpy because he has no idea. You're just paying his rent. He doesn't know what they're going to do with the community. He's an old retired musician that, had a thing for, Bumpy Johnson's sister. Now back at the school, here we are. Soul sister. We got Margaret. You got Mamie, we got Elise, we got all the mothers rolling up into the school together. So they called all the mothers whose children are being abused, and they are walking up in the spot. I hope they're not walking in by themselves. So back at Straub and Partners, they're in the boardroom, and who walks in? Bumpy Johnson walks in and says, sorry, sir, I couldn't stop him. This is Mr. Marshall Grant. I brought him here so he can see exactly what he's owning and what's going to happen to the property that he's going to own, right? So here we go with the ladies and Margaret, and they're walking into the school, and the principal and the other guy, probably assistant principal, like, you need to leave the property right now. I'm telling you right now. And Elise, of course, is speaking up and saying, you know what? You're not going to beat our kids anymore. Who do you think we are? You're doing this because of the color of our skin. Like, what do you think you're doing? You can't beat our kids and our children and everything else like that. I'm telling you for the last time, leave the property. I'm going to call 911. I'm going to call the cops, right? So here we are with the Percy property thing that's supposed to be on 125th Street, right? So Bumpy is showing Mr. Marshall, right? Mr. Marshall Grant. Well, this is what they plan on doing, on 125th Street. They're going to change this and put a parking structure here and basically kicked the people out. And Mr. Straba's like, well, we make a little bit of changes and this, that, and the third. And Mr. G is looking at it like, what's going on here, right? And of course, Bumpy just egging him on and saying, hey, yeah, he's going to out a whole lot of people and they're going to have to move and everything else like that. And yeah, he's being real smart about this to show and expose the truth as to what Straba's about to do. So back in the school, of course, Elise is still going in. It's like, we're not going anywhere. He's like, okay, I'm going to be forced to call the police, right? So they call the police, right? And she's like, one mother's like, you put hands on my child again, I'm going to beat your ass, right? Mamas ain't playing. Don't mess with no black mama, period, especially with their children. Don't mess with them, right? They have no idea. So they're standing there like they're going to do something. They got all these black, beautiful mamas right there. You ain't going to do nothing to them, right? So they're still talking about the property back in the boardroom. And, Bumpy, they're going to do this and do that with the Apollo Theater. He's like, what? You trying to take the Apollo Theater now? Well, I'll make some changes. And, Marshall's like, no, I'm not having it. I'm going to sell. I own the deed. I'm going to sell, and I'm going to sell to you, Bumpy Johnson. You, Bumpy Johnson. And he's like, what? So it comes the police, right? Police are coming. It's like, yeah, we need to teach them a lesson. They got to learn. So they go around the corner. You got Mamie, Elise, and they are standing strong. The mothers are standing strong. So they standing there like the cops. They got like 4 cops. What they going to do, right? What are they going to do? Here comes in Afeni Shakur and the Black Panthers, boy. They walking in there strong, coming around the back of where the police are, and they got them cornered. It's like, you going to take us all on, pig? So Afeni Shakur and the Black Panthers, they standing there strong. Like, yeah, what you going to do? You going to try to kick us all out? We're not going anywhere until you fire that teacher, right? So they're like, man, what you gonna do? 4 cops against who? The Black Panthers and the beautiful black mothers? Nah, it ain't going down. Afeni Shakur standing right there in front. Like, what? With pig? Like, this was crazy, right? So yeah, Mr. G was going on. He's like, nope, you are not gonna take down the Apollo Theater. It's not gonna happen. And Straba talked to his board members like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. And nah, Mr. G's like, nope, I'm going to sell him down, and I'm gonna sell to Bumpy Johnson. Yeah, Bumpy Johnson. I'm going to sell for? Yeah, a couple dollars, right? A couple dollars a quarters, because that's exactly what Bumpy's sister gave Bumpy a long time ago, and Bumpy felt like a rich man, right? So, of course, he's smiling, and he's like, okay, that'll be great. We've been attacked. We're going to take care of our people. So they shake hands on it, and yeah, they shake hands. And yeah, Mr. G going to sell a Bumpy and save Harlem, save 125th Street, the Apollo Theater, and everything. And man, this is a great moment. Mr. G saved Harlem. If he would have kept going with this deal, we would have seen a whole different Harlem today. So thank God for Mr. Marshall Grant selling to Bumpy Johnson, and Bumpy Johnson doing the right thing to keep Harlem and its culture intact. Man, so what does Bumpy do? He takes that little project, little small on there, trying to change 125th Street, and he pushes it off the table onto the floor. That's right, Bumpy. That's right. You are out of here. You trying to bamboozle the system, and Mr. G and Bumpy are aligning themselves together to save the community. This was, and this is, moment right here, a proud moment where, yes, we have come together to save our culture. Meanwhile, Frank Lucas rolls up on Mr. Colombo. Joe Colombo says, hey, man, I got a deal for Mr. Colombo. So they pat him down and they let him in, right? So, he's like, Frank, yeah, I heard you the man. I heard, you the man in the business. He's trying to gas him up just so he can get in good with Joe Colombo. And Joe Colombo, he has a huge ego. So, of course, he's hearing him out. He's like, what do you know? Like, well, you know what? I got about 20 keys, man, and I like to do business with you. And of course, I want to get my cut. But, yeah, we can do some business and take over Harlem. Yeah, so that's his intention. That's what he wants to do with Joe Colombo. And let's see if Joe Colombo falls for it. But that's what he's there to do, to mess around with, of course, Bumpy's enemy. Wow. So here we are at a new place And it looks like Bumpy is giving Mr. G the key. And he's like, you know what? This is for me. This is my new place. He's like, it's not half bad. So Bumpy's like, yeah, this is your new spot. It's probably one of Bumpy's properties that he owns. So he's giving it to Mr. G, getting him out of the ghetto, getting him out of that dump. And of course, he pays him the 2 rolls of penny to buy the property as he said he would on that 125th Street. This is real. This was a real good moment, you know. We're old school, new school, and you know, Mr. G sees that Bumpy's a different man now. He's trying to do better for himself, for his family, and also for Malcolm, right? And now, as we end it, we see Elise got an afro. She got her beautiful, beautiful afro with a leather jacket. She turns around looking all soul sister sexy, man. Look, Elise now down with the Black Panthers. She has a new movement. She has her voice. And she is going to be speaking for the people, by the people, to absolutely seek justice as she has always meant to do. This is the new Elise down with the Black Panthers. Fam, are you ready? Because I'm ready to see Elise is going to be in action with the Black Panthers for self-defense. And family, that's the end of the episode. Family, let me know. Drop your comments below. Let me know your thoughts about this incredible episode. Again, Bumpy Johnson, everybody making changes, and I like to see the progress. Family, appreciate you all for watching. If you love this video, like this video, appreciate this video, definitely check out the next one. And what's going to happen next, we shall see on the next episode of The Godfather of Harlem.